I spent 19 years in prison as an adult, but I was actually arrested as a juvenile, and here's the story. My buddies and I were out on a Friday night. We wanted to find something to drink, but we couldn't find anybody to buy us liquor or buy us beer, so we came up with this grand plan in 16-year-old fashion that we were going to pull up to the side of the food line. I was going to go inside, grab the case of beer and the Zima or whatever it was, run out, jump in the truck, and take off. So I go in, I'm looking nervous, looking over my shoulder, just sure everybody knows what I'm doing. I grab it, I go out the side door, and the alarm goes off. I was a little freaked out, my heart was racing, but I was like, well, it's not a big deal, like, it's not, So I go drop the stuff in the back of the truck, get in the passenger seat, and look over, and my buddy's not in the truck. He'd gotten out and gone in the front for whatever reason. So now I'm sitting there thinking, oh, what do I do? And the side door of the food line flies open, and like 5 employees come running out, like looking like they're gonna find this beer. They're gonna find what happens. So I jump in the driver's seat and I take off, and this whole line of cars come after me. Like every single one of them chased me out of that parking lot. These were the most dedicated employees I had ever seen in my life. So I'm driving away and I'm trying to evade them, go fast, and it was a terrible situation. Like I'm so glad nobody got hurt. Finally, one of them corners me in a parking lot. I'm like, oh, I can't get away. But I say, I'm in a truck, like I'm good. So I go to drive over the curb into the next parking lot, not realizing that there's a 5-foot retaining wall between one parking lot and the other. So as I gun it, the truck goes up in the air. I'm flying through like some Dukes of Hazzard craziness. I land on one wheel. It kind of like spins out. And thankfully, it was a truck with a really good suspension, like one of those off-road suspensions, so it didn't just break and fall into pieces. I turn the corner, I look back, and the guy was just staring at me. I remember his face sitting out the side of his truck, and he was obviously not going to go over the same thing. And I drive off into the night, and I remember thinking like, hey, we got away. Well, kind of, like all the Zima or what it was had broken or bounced out of the back of the truck when I jumped off. I think there were maybe a couple cans of beer left it was just a horrible situation. But so then I'm trying to figure out, how do I pick my buddy up? Like, I don't want to go back to the grocery store, but he's still there waiting. It's his truck, not mine. So we finally like get in touch. We figure out what we're going to do. And he like walks down to the Hardee's and meets me at the Hardee's. And at that point, he's like, well, what do you want to do? Do you still want to go drink? And my heart is still racing. I'm still completely out of my mind. I'm like tense and nervous. I was like, no, like take me somewhere else. So I went to somebody's house. I went and just like relaxed and like stayed away. And I thought, okay, that's the end of it. Like, yeah, we did something dumb, but nobody got hurt. We're okay. A couple days later, the cops come to his house because of his license plate. And his brother threatens to beat the crap out of him because the cops showing up, he thought he was selling drugs or doing something bad. And he was like, man, if I ever catch you doing this. So there was this huge conflict there. And his mom saw the whole conflict. And when the cops finally came and talked to his mom, they explained what had happened. And his mom immediately was like, well, I don't know. You'll have to ask him, but I'm pretty sure his buddy did this. Like, this is who I think would have done it. So they went and asked him. They said that I did it. And yeah, the cops came to me. So it wasn't like they came and arrested me. It wasn't like they did anything formal. They just basically sent me a summons. Like, yeah, we need to see you. Like, go ahead and come to the courthouse. I didn't know what to do. I don't, like, do you fight this? Like, do you argue? Like, I had a cowboy hat on. Could they really tell it was me? So I went to go see the public defender, and he was like, look, kid, like, they're going to convict you no matter what. And if you don't plead guilty, they're going to give you, like, a mass at times. So just plead guilty. You're not going to be able to smoke pot because you're going to be on probation, but, like, no big deal. So I go in, I'm like, okay, I can accept this. Yes, I stole beer. This is what happened. And then the judge is like, all right, well, I'm going to give you 10 days in juvie. And I was like, he just told me I was going to be on probation. Like, I don't want to go to juvie. I wasn't prepared for this. I didn't have any idea. He goes, and with 9 days suspended. And I remember thinking, like, juvie's like a long way away. Are they really going to like transport me all the way there? Like, I don't want to do that. That doesn't make sense. So they take me down to the basement of the juvenile facility, and there's this holding room. And I go walk into this holding room, and sure enough, somebody I know is sitting in that holding room, same thing. He got a day in juvie, which is where they put you down there for 2 or 3 hours, basically hold you and count that as a day towards your 10 days, or your 20 days, or whatever you have with something suspended. So we sit in there, we kind of like shoot the stuff and go back and forth. But I'm like, I clearly don't want to do this. Like, this is one of those scared straight moments where they're trying to tell you don't make this mistake. But this is also one of the reasons I say scared straight doesn't work, because I ended up going to adult prison for 19 years. So like, clearly this didn't deter me enough. I get the idea, it just didn't work. So then I come out, I have to go directly to the juvenile probation office. But in my mind, I haven't had a cigarette in like 3 hours or 4 hours. I'm freaking out. So I get out, they let me have all the stuff in my pockets, which was weird. And I don't have any cigarettes, but I look over and there's an ashtray that has like half smoked cigarette, and I'm cool. So I pick it up and I start lighting it. My mom's there and my dad's there and this woman's there. And then my dad just like smacks it out of my mouth. He's like, you know that's your probation officer, right? I was like, oh, okay. So I went in there, they made me do a piss test, they made me go through this whole thing, and I did my 6 months of juvenile probation, I got off. But unfortunately, during that time, I didn't learn what I needed to learn. I didn't change my behavior because during that time I found cocaine. And yes, they were drug testing me, but it was once a month. Cocaine doesn't stay in your system for very long. And if I wanted to, I probably could have just faked the drug test. So even though they were trying to provide that because there was no more interaction or support, I veered completely to the left at the time they wanted me to veer to the right. And that was really the beginning of the end where I ended up going to prison.